Hey, what's up everyone? Justin from Make Supply here, and today's video is a build-along tutorial making a simple map case style satchel. This also comes with a shoulder strap. So this is a free PDF download, so follow the link in the video description below to go to our website where you can download this PDF as an A4 size printout or a letter size printout to follow at home. It has all the stitching holes and rivet holes and everything marked for you. Just a heads up, this project for me this time was absolutely cursed. From the beginning, starting the video until the end, I ran into just problems with my template, problems with the video, my microphone cuts in and out at some points. I tried to edit everything out to make it as seamless as possible, but there are some weird sections here and there. I apologize. I'll get it all sorted out for the next project. I wanted to get this one done and out to everyone. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, let's start with inventory. If you've never seen any of my videos before, I go through all the tools and hardware that I'll be using for this project, and I will link to a place where you can buy all of this stuff on the blog post for this project, which is linked in the description below. I'm going to go over the tools and the hardware now, then I will show out the leather that we'll be using, and then I will go over the template and how to put the template together. Okay, so let's go over the tools. I'll start just right to left here. Number 2 X-Acto knife, CS Osborne scratch awl. For punching holes, I have this new Barry King 24 ounce, I believe it's 24 ounce mallet. Dremel just for sanding edges. A 18-inch ruler as well as a 48-inch ruler. Some random clips for holding the glued pieces together. Some barge cement for gluing. The stitching chisels I'll be using are 5mm Seiwa Kaioshin L Diamond Stitching Chisels. Any 5mm distance from end to end stitching chisel will match up exactly with the stitching holes for this project. So if you want to punch the stitching holes through the template using chisel, you can buy any 5mm stitching chisel set. Doesn't have to be this, and it'll work perfectly with the design for this template. I'm going to be using this tiger thread. What color is this? I'm not sure exactly what color. Just dark brown, 0.8mm. A wing divider, just some thread nippers for cutting thread, 2 John James needles, a 1-inch CS Osborne slot punch for the strap, some masking tape that I'll be using to hold down parts of the paper template when we're tracing it, and I'll talk about this in a second. Then some black Buckle Guy black matte edge paint. I'm going to be using an oil tan leather to do this satchel, so I cannot effectively burnish it as you would a veg tan, so I'm going to paint the edges black. And then the hardware we'll be using is 2 1¼ inch trigger snaps for our straps, 1 1¼ inch center bar buckle for our strap, 2 3/4 inch antique brass D-rings. Kind of wish this was all the same color, but didn't end up that way. And then for the rivets, I'll be using these double cap rivets, the 9.2mm size cap from Buckle Guy antique brass. So you can obviously mix and match whatever you have. If you have copper rivets, you can use copper rivets, and whatever hardware you have for the straps and whatnot. And to set the rivets, I'll be using the Buckle Guy snap press. I think I covered all the tools, so let me clear this off and we'll look at the leather. Okay, so let's look at the leather I'm going to be using. So I've had this hide of Crazy Horse oil tan leather from Acadia Leather for a while now, and I feel like this is a perfect project to make a little map case out of. So this is an oil tan leather, which basically just means it's a chrome tan leather. It has a nice, very distinct pull-up look to it. Here's another, here's a test version of the satchel I made. This is another oil tan. It's not Crazy Horse, but it's similar. See, it gives a really nice rustic look to the map case, which really gets offset by the nice antique brass hardware. Okay, so I'll link below to where you can buy a leather like this if you'd like. And this is 4.5 to 5 ounces. This project is pretty good with almost any size you have because there's not a whole lot of layers to it. I would suggest somewhere in the 4.5 to 5 up to 8 ounce would be pushing it. Anything higher than that, it's a little much. But you can pretty much use whatever you have for this. Okay, so now I'm going to do a quick run through on how to put the template together. First step, print out the entire PDF template pack. Grab a ruler, an X-Acto knife, some tape, and a glue stick, which is optional. Please make sure that you've printed everything out at actual size by measuring these 2 squares to make sure that the dimensions are accurate. If they are not what reads on the paper, please repeat the first step. Okay, we'll start with the front panel. We need to connect these 2 pieces to make the one panel. So what you're going to do is cut along the dotted lines on both of these pieces. When you line up the pieces, the scissor icon in the middle will complete a full pair of scissors. Next, we're going to put some glue on a piece of scrap paper here and glue down the 2 pieces to keep them connected. You can also just tape them to each other. Now I'm just putting a couple pieces of tape on the top just to make sure that those pieces don't move. Now you will cut the template out as you would normally. Same process for the back panel. Attach together at the middle and then cut out. Repeat the same process again for the lid. Now on to the gusset. The gusset is printed out on 2 different pages in 4 different pieces. Trim along the dashed lines. First, we will connect G1 to G2. Next, we will connect G3 to G4. And finally, we will connect G5 to G6. Now at this point, trim off any excess paper that is around the template. Your gusset is now complete and ready to be used. Cut out and connect the closure strap, the shoulder strap. The strap keeper, all you have to do is cut it out. The handle you have to cut out and connect, and this little piece here, all you have to do is cut it out. And here is all of our templates cut out and ready to be used. Okay, so I hope that you have all of your cardstock templates printed out and attached and cut out and ready to go. And now it's time to place it down on our leather and cut them out. So I am going to do something a little bit different than I normally do. And I'm going to actually use the paper template, which I never do. And I'm also going to use the stitching holes as they're marked here. And I'm going to punch them through, I'm going to mark all of them through the template, and then I will go through and then punch them with my stitching chisels. As I mentioned in inventory, any set of stitching chisels that have 5 millimeter distance between the prongs, center to center, will work perfectly for this distance. If you want to get it. Otherwise, if you just have like a scratch awl or just a hole punch, you can just punch each one individually, and they all line up. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to lightly tape this piece down so it doesn't move. I'm going to use some masking tape and just put it in a couple different spots here. I don't want to put too much. I know some people like to tape everything, the whole edges down and everything, and then from there punch all the holes and cut it out. You can do it that way. I just don't like to cut blindly into the leather, so I like to remove the template and then cut it out. So I'm just going to take a couple pieces here. You know, when you're taping over, make sure that it's somewhat transparent tape that you're using so you can see the holes below. Just a couple different places. Maybe I'll do one on the bottom here. Just like that. So now I know that this isn't going to move. And then I'm going to go ahead and mark your 3 spots for your rivets through the template into the leather. So rivet 1, rivet 2, rivet 3. And now I'm going to go ahead and mark all of these holes through very lightly. And don't forget the line across the top. Okay, so I went ahead and marked all these holes through. Like I said before, if you just want to tape it down and punch through with your chisel right now or your hole punch, feel free. I don't like to mark permanent marks like that when I can't see the leather directly. So now I'm just going to go ahead and trace the outside. Okay, so I went ahead and traced everything out. Now I'm just going to take my tape off. And now we have our piece ready to be cut out. Okay, that's the first panel. That's the back panel. And now I have small markings for all of my holes that I will then punch through. And then once we finish that, everything can be stitched up very easily. Okay, now we're going to move on to front panel. lid done. Okay, now it's time to do the gusset. Since this piece is long, obviously make sure you have enough space on your leather here. I'm going a couple inches down just to make sure I have this nice clean edge I already made here ready for straps later on. And so I just moved it a couple inches down. And yeah, there's a lot of holes on this one, but once you get it done and all punched through, I think it makes it worth it in the end. So don't forget to mark your rivet and your cut line on the ends here and down here, as well as all your holes. So I'm going to tape this down and get it going here. And make sure it's flat. That was a long one. Now, we will cut this out. So I did say I was going to use the long ruler to cut this, but I don't think I'm going to. I'm just going to use this and just take my time. All right, well, that was fun. So now we have our gusset piece. Let's move on. Okay, so go ahead and take the shoulder strap pieces, these two, and move them off to the side for now. We're going to do these at the end. And next, you just have to do these three pieces. So handle strap, mark your rivets, and then just trace around. There's no stitching on this one. handle strap. And now the closure strap. Take note that there are a couple stitching holes on the top there that are mandatory. And there's also 2 rivets. Closure strap done. And since I have an extra little scrap piece here, I will do the closure strap keeper on this. I don't think I'll need to tape this one down. Okay, this was my first big error on this template set. You need to cut 3 of these out. So this little piece right here, you need 3 of these. Strap closure keeper done. Okay, so for now we have cut out everything. Like I said, we're going to do the strap, the shoulder strap stuff later, once we're done the body for the satchel. Okay, here's all of our pieces. So next we are going to punch all of our stitching holes and all of our rivet holes. Okay, so even though we've already marked our holes technically, I'm still going to scribe a light stitching groove line all the way around just to keep myself aligned when I'm punching all the holes through. You don't have to do it. I just like to make sure that since I'm hand stitching and it's going to be a feature of the product, that it's as nice as I can make it. So on the lid, you do across the top. Make sure you only go as far as the stitching holes down the sides though, which is like an inch or so. Just like that. And the last piece. Well, technically second to last. Now I'm going to set up my punching apparatus and we're going to punch all of our holes. Alright, so however you're punching these holes, either using a standard just hole punch set or a set of stitching chisels that are 5mm. I have the 6-prong and a 2-prong here. I'm going to go ahead and just put the chisel over top of the holes and just punch right through. Since we're working on the back panel here, make sure to punch the line across the top. Do the exact same process on the front panel, and now we have both our front and back panel with all of our holes punched. Next, move on to the lid. The lid only has stitching holes across the top and a couple down each side. Now punch the holes that are on top of the closure strap. And then move on to the gusset, and you have to punch all of these holes through. Okay, so I went ahead and punched all the holes out of the gusset, and also on the lid top, and also on the back panel, and also on the front panel, and the couple of holes that are on the strap. So that is all of our stitching holes for this project done. And they all line up so we can stitch quickly. Now we have to punch out the holes for the rivets. So I might as well just start over here on the lid, because this is what's here. Of course, I missed a crucial part in inventory, so you got to have something to punch your holes. I have this like super cheap set of hole punches from Amazon. So, I mean, they're not bad, but you know, they're not great either. They're cheap. So I'm just going to use that. This little hole punch here to punch all these rivet holes through. So starting on the lid, find those 3 holes that you marked for your rivets. Okay. And those are the 3 holes for the lid. Next, the gusset. There's only 1 rivet hole on each side for this, but if you want to scratch your cut line just to make it a little darker, that's okay. You can cut that out now or later. Actually, we'll cut it out now. So go ahead and punch your hole, your rivet hole. And then I'm going to grab my X-Acto and just cut a slit right through there. That's where the little attachment's going to feed through for our straps. Just like that. Okay. Same thing on the other side. And our gusset is done. We got the little keeper closure piece. Handle. Now onto the back panel. This one has 3 across the top here. That. And our front panel has 2 down in the middle, or towards the bottom actually. Just like that. And last, our closure strap has 2, one at the top and one towards the middle. Just like that. Okay, now we have all of our holes punched. Let's continue on. Okay, so now I'm going to be painting the edges that I won't be able to access once this is put together. If you are burnishing edges like we would normally do, just swap burnishing in for painting. Okay, so I'm going to grab my edge paint. Let me find something to put under this. Okay, so we are going to have to paint the edges or burnish of these 3 strap pieces. Okay, so I went ahead and painted all 4 sides of this closure strap, and now I'm just going to go put it somewhere to let it dry. And there's a couple pieces on the main panels that need to get painted. So the top of the lid piece, you need to paint the top. Actually, with the lid, you need to paint everything, all the way around. Okay, full perimeter of the lid painted. Next, we will paint just the top of the back and front panels. 2. Well, we can do this later. We'll just do the top of each of the gusset. So not the long part, just the 2 short parts. Okay, so our first round of painting and or burnishing is done. So I'm going to let these dry and then we'll come back. Okay, so now we have to attach some straps and doodads to a couple pieces before we continue. So go ahead and get your rivet setters, either your hand press or whatever you're using, and your 3 little pieces here. Again, I'm sorry about that. I totally forgot that we needed 2 more of these. And grab your front panel and then one of your attachments here. So we're going to set the rivet of this piece onto here. It's going to look like that. Over on the other side here, put the cap on. Put the cap on. And I'm going to use my rivet setter and just pop that guy in there. And there is our little strap closure. So you can take this, move it off to the side. Now go ahead and grab your gusset. You can see the ends here. Like that. And what we're going to be doing here is taking one of the little pieces here, and we're going to be feeding it through. One side is going to feed through the dash. So you might have to widen this a little bit. Depending on how thick your leather is and how stiff the leather is. Like this leather is really firm, so it's kind of hard to work with here. So what you're going to do is stick this through here. Take your time. So it's like that, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the D-ring in here, like this, fold it over, like that, and then rivet that down, okay? Might need to put a little extra into the holes here. So they line up. You can use your scratch awl to kind of like line up all the holes. Just like that. So I'm going to grab my rivets. So just like this, make sure it's nice and straight. Make sure your D-ring's in there. You don't want to set the rivet without a D-ring. That's what it looks like on the back. And go ahead and put your cap on. Bring this forward. And there is our first side. You can see it's very, very strong because it's attaching all 3 layers like that. And do the same exact thing on the other side. Okay, it looks good. Straighten it out a little bit. And now we have the second one on. So now our gusset has both of our D-rings attached. And our front panel has the strap closure done. Okay, it's time to do our first line of stitching. Go ahead and grab your back panel and your lid. And what we're going to be doing here is stitching the line from the lid on top of the back panel to make the full back panel. Okay? And you also have to grab your closure strap. See how that goes on. Just like that. So I am not going to glue this down to the back panel. I think since there's not an edge that's going to be finished together, it's okay if it's just stitched down because it's also going to be riveted. But I will put a little bit of glue on the end of the strap closure just to keep it in the right position there, just like that. And then a little bit right there. You can use some needles or anything really. You just want to make sure that the stitching holes line up as they're supposed to. You can use your scratch awl to mark, where your rivets are supposed to go. That looks good. Okay, so just like that, I'm going to leave those 2 needles in there. Just let that set for a minute, and then we'll come back and we can stitch up everything. Okay, so I let that dry for a minute. Now you're ready to place your lid on top of the stitching line for your back panel. Line that up nice. Again, you can glue it down if you want. So now I'm going to stitch from the second hole in to the second hole in. I'm not going to go edge to edge just because we're going to be using this line to stitch up the whole body and it's just more thread in the way. So I'm going to stitch from the second hole in to the second hole in. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt at first, but once this thing gets attached, it's not too bad. Okay, so I'm going to finish the rest of this line here, and then we'll come back and look at it. Okay, so I went ahead and stitched across the top there. See? Now we have our closure strap on, and now we are going to set some more rivets. Okay, so as you see, we have a rivet here and a rivet here to do the strap, so we'll just do that one now. to maneuver this a little bit. Okay, that's one. Okay, get this out of the way for a second. And there is our strap. Now we're going to do the handle. So just like this. Okay, so with this one, you have a little bit of leeway on your angle here. So you want to kind of make sure that the angle that the handle goes off on here is nice and even. You don't want it to be like this or like this. Just something like that, just so it's nice and even. You can see it on the example here. And then go ahead and pop that bad boy on there. That is our lid with our handle and our closer strap. And now we have shaping up here. You can see how this folds over, goes in like that. Okay. So now it is time to stitch the gusset. The gusset. Sorry, everyone yells at me for the way I say it. I'm sorry, I'm from Philadelphia. This is how we talk. The gusset. Okay, so now it is time to stitch the front panel to the first side of the gusset. So just make sure that you're lining it up correctly and that the D-ring is facing the top. And you have a couple options here. So you can go ahead and not glue it and just stitch it down if you want. Or you can glue the whole thing together and then stitch. What I'm going to do is do it in sections. I'm going to put a little bit of glue along the first side here, glue it down, stitch it, and then do the bottom, around the corners in the bottom, glue and stitch, and then I'm going to go up the final side here, glue and stitch. Just do it in sections. So I will start that now. Just measure out, let's get a rough idea. It doesn't have to be perfect, that looks about good. And now you're going to want to go ahead and put it together and match up the holes. So the easiest way to do this is to get some spare needles and then your clips. And then just line up the holes using the needles. And if you did a good job punching your holes, all these should line up pretty easily once you get the first few holes here. So I'm just going to skip 2 or 3, put a needle through, and then skip another 2 or 3, and put the needle through. And that should all line up pretty nice. So now I'm just going to squeeze it down and then throw some clips on here. you want to be extra sure, you can move the needles down and keep doing it. Just like that. So now all my holes are lined up on the gusset side and on the front panel here. And I'm just going to let that tack for a minute, and then I'll start stitching. Okay, so I let that dry for a minute, and I can take these needles out, put them back. And most of these clips I don't need anymore. I'll take the top couple off. I'll leave the ones towards the bottom for now. And now you're going to want to start stitching. If you need help on saddle stitching, I did a video a couple years ago you can find in my video feed. Otherwise, there's definitely other good saddle stitching videos out there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap around the top edge here and then stitch all the way down to somewhere around here. And then I'll come back to do the gluing for the bottom. Just, that's a little bit harder around the curve. So we'll make sure we get that part good, and then we'll continue going. So what I'm going to do here is just start on the second hole out. This thread is so long. And then I'm going to backstitch once. And then I'm going to wrap around the edge. Okay, I don't know how easy that is to see on the camera there, but I wrapped around the edge, and now I'm going to stitch down to the end of the curve here and then come back. Okay, so I just went ahead and stitched up to the corner here. Let me untangle this. It's looking good so far. You can see the best part of pre-punching all your holes is the front and the back look like the front do. There's no bad looking backside to pre-punching. So that's why I love to do that especially on projects like this. So now we have to glue down the corner. So the corner is a little tougher. You have to manhandle this piece a little bit to make sure everything stays together nice. But then once you get this one done, it's not so bad. All right, so now we are going to do the same thing we did in the beginning. I'm going to grab some needles and then mark the holes through around this corner. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stitch from where we ended here all the way around our corner to this corner, and then we'll come back and do this corner and finish it up. When you're marking your needles through here, this doesn't have to be like precisely clamped down like this is so flush. If this is up a little bit, that's okay, because when you stitch it, it'll really clamp it down. So just make sure that your edges meet up as nicely as possible, because you're going to have to paint this or burnish this later, and it's bad when like one like sinks below the other, like one edge. So really pay attention to the amount of holes. Make sure your holes are even going through the corner and out of the corner, and then make sure that your edges are as even as possible on the top surface level here. Okay, so let's do this and come back. Okay, we are approaching the second corner here. So what I'm going to do is the same thing I did last time. I'm just going to glue, and then actually I'll start from the top here and then work my way down. It's a little bit easier. But this corner is much easier to deal with than the first one. Now that this shape has been made, it's not as difficult to glue down. Okay, so now I'm going to fit this fellow right on here. Okay, so that's looking pretty decent. I'm going to let it dry for a second, and then I'm going to complete stitching the entire side up here, and then we will come back and look at it. Okay, so went ahead and finished up stitching the last side all the way to the end. Trim off my thread. And now you have a nice, even stitch line all the way around your gusset and your front panel. So next, you're going to do the same exact thing, but for the back panel. Okay, so this one's stitching up into the lid area here. It has these, so these are the top holes. And then that just goes on like that. So again, you can do this however you want. You can just stitch it without glue, or you can glue it in portions like we did the first time, or you can just glue the whole thing down and just do it all in one shot. So I think I'm going to do it the same way I did the beginning. So I'll throw some glue down. And also pay attention to the way you're stitching. So I want the front to be what the back is here. So I'm going to start on this side. So back, top left corner, and then stitch around. That way the back of the stitching for both sides is in the gusset. It's just more even that way. Again, don't be afraid to, manhandle this gusset piece a little bit. If you bend it out like this, it makes the stitching easier. If you're using a softer leather, this doesn't matter as much. It's a little tougher at the first part here because now you have 3 layers. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and then I'm just going to stitch the whole thing this time. I'm going to do the same thing I did last time off camera. I'm just going to stitch to here, you know, once I get to the end, kind of make sure I get the corner set down nice and glued, add some more glue, and stitch all the way around. So same exact process as the last time, except there's no end for you to loop over like the top here. So go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back and look at it. Okay, just went ahead and finished stitching the back panel on. And now we can trim our thread, and we're officially done stitching for this project. Thank God. Okay, so now you are just about done. So if you burnished or painted your edges in the beginning, you have to do that now for the outside edges here. See, they're a little scruffy. I'm going to take the Dremel sander and sand off and try to make it nice and even and get the excess glue off, and then I'm going to paint it with my black edge paint. All right, so nice and sanded. Now we will paint. Okay, so I just finished painting all the edges all the way around. I'm going to go let it dry for a second, and then we will take a look. All right, so I let it dry for a couple minutes here, and you can see our completed satchel. Nice large area for books or like an iPad, stuff like that. Journal. Let me close it up a little bit here. Especially with this firmer, like crazy horse leather, I find once you put some stuff in it, it actually takes a better shape. But let's see what we have. Here's the back and the top. I'll show you the other one. Just for reference, here's the one I made previously. It's a nice little design. So, if you already have a strap and you don't need to make one for this, then this will be the end of your video. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoy the template. If you're looking to make a shoulder strap, we will continue on. It'll be the last step. So go ahead and move your pieces away and bring out your shoulder strap templates that we cut out in the beginning. Okay? So now let's talk about these for a second. On the paper, I suggest, I'll probably write it on this template actually for the one you're going to download. I suggest at least around a 48-inch strap. So this is about 1.25 inches thick or wide, and you're going to need at least a 48-inch strap of leather for this piece. And then for this one is the exact same size as this template. So you just need to cut this template. So you're going to want to go ahead and cut out either using a strap cutter or your ruler, a nice strap of whatever leather you're going to use. So I'm using the same leather as the satchel. Since it's not a big satchel, I am okay with using a slightly lighter weight strap. If that was a bigger size, like if that was like a full-size messenger bag, I would probably double this up. I'd have to double the layers, stitch it, and then, you know, that's a nice strong strap, or use something heavier. But this is fine for this project. Okay, so how this is going to work is on one end, you're going to place your template. Let's see if I can get this on the camera better here. Over top. And trace out the English point here at the tip, and then mark these holes. Okay, don't do this part. Don't do the back end, just the front end. So you're going to mark these holes, and if you want more holes, which a lot of you probably will, just slide down the template and then mark more holes accordingly, however many you want. Okay? And then on the back end, once we have our strap cut to 48 inches here, you're just going to do the rounded edges and then the 4 marks for rivets. Okay, I have a really long ruler here. I'm just going to mark out 48 inches and then cut it. Okay, so this piece is now 48 inches. And then I will be using this cutoff piece for the other template, the shoulder strap keeper, which we'll do later. Okay, so like we talked about, on the front side, the front end, go ahead and line up your template right on top. Trace out the English point. And then mark through these holes. And if you want more holes, you just gotta line up. Line up your template on top of a hole you already punched or marked, and then just keep marking down. Just like that. Okay, so now we are going to cut the English point off. And then you're going to want to go ahead and punch those holes through. Okay, and the size hole punch you'll use is determined on how wide the end is on your buckle. So this one has a pretty thick end, so I kind of had to punch a reasonably sized hole. Might even have to make it wider, actually. Okay, so that's one side, and you can make as many holes as you need. And on the other side, we're just going to be marking rivets and cutting off those corners there. Okay, and those are our 4 holes for our rivets. Okay, now we are going to set our first trigger snap on the end of this strap. So go ahead and grab your trigger snap, put it on the end, fold it over, and pop your rivets on. Okay. And our first part of the shoulder strap is done. It's time for the second part. So go ahead and you can put it anywhere on here because we're going to cut it down. And you're going to go ahead and mark all your rivet holes. And then trace around the edges. And the slot punch, I'm just going to mark the barriers here, so I know where the center line is. If you really want to just hold this here and punch this through, you can do that too as well. Yeah, I might make a little indent if I can. So I have this designed for a 1-inch slot punch, but you can use whatever you want. And you can also just cut this out with a knife if you don't have a slot punch. Okay, so I am going to now cut this out. And now you're going to punch your holes. There's all of our rivet holes. And now do your slot punch. Okay. Now we have all of our holes popped out. Time to do our rivets and attach our thing here. All right, first we'll do the trigger snap. So go to the side without the slot punch. And same thing as we did last time, wrap it around. Line up your holes and set your rivets. All right, one down. And this one, make sure you do this right, otherwise you're gonna have to take it apart and get a new one, or make a new one. So the tongue goes to the left. Wrap it through. Oops, even I didn't do it right. Come under. Put it through, put the center part through the slot. Wrap it around the center bar, just like that. And then same thing, pop your rivets on. And that is the second part. So let's clear all this off and look at our strap and then look at our completed satchel. Okay, so here's our finished strap. Here's the bottom piece and the shoulder strap piece. Looking good. If you want to add a shoulder pad, something that looks like this, that you can just pop onto your piece like this. I have a free template set for a bunch of different designs and a bunch of different sizes. It'll be linked in the description below. It's another part of the bag series. So you can go ahead and download that pattern pack and you can create a nice shoulder pad for your satchel. All right, so let's attach everything up here. You want to go ahead and throw your side piece on there. And then obviously you put this over your shoulder and adjust it to whatever size fits you best. Just like that. Fold that under. If you wanted to make an extra little keeper, I don't have one part of the template, but you can just make a nice little loop and it'll hold the rest of the strap here. That will complete the basic map case template set. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section below, or you can email me directly. I'll help out as best as I can. And thanks for watching.